iTestify is about testifying of what Jesus Christ has done and can do in each of our lives. Through testimony of people just like you and through study of His Word, our prayer is to encourage each follower of Christ to be a light in this world. So let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Matthew 5:16. Hello and welcome to iTestify. Our guest today is Jamie Bird. Jamie is an academic dean at California Preparatory College, and he's also a history teacher and a philosophy of science teacher. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for having me as your guest.
Tell us a little bit about California Preparatory College, or CPC.
California Preparatory College is an independent ministry, and it is what would be tantamount to an Adventist junior college. So that means we offer the first 2 years of freshman and sophomore level classes where students can come to basically an Adventist community college, take their classes in a Christian environment, and then be able to transfer those classes to one of our senior institutions or some other schools.
Oh, wow. And so as a history teacher or a philosophy of science teacher, what do you do in your classes?
With what I've tried to do with my classes, and you've probably heard this a lot of times where people say, history is his story. And, you know, I don't know how much they really appreciate how important that is, but when you look at what our beliefs are as Adventists, and you combine history, American history, with the Great Controversy, it really allows you so many opportunities for meaningfully communicate Adventist teaching and ideas into your classes, that it allows students to say, you know what, that makes sense. I can apply that in a way that they might not have understood when they were younger or ever appreciated.
Okay, and so by the Great Controversy, we're talking about this great controversy between God and Satan. And so you have this different worldview when you look at your life in comparison to this much bigger picture.
Correct.
Okay.
And what we've tried to do at CPC is create an environment where you don't just have a class that kind of starts with a prayer and you have what would be basically a secular class after that. It's to take what we believe as Adventists and integrate that into the curriculum. So you can use that in a health and fitness class, you can use that in a history class, in business, and how does that all make sense, and why is ministry important, and what is our actual purpose?
What made you decide to do this? What started this?
We started working on this project. There was a number of people, but before I was teaching at California Preparatory College, I worked at La Sierra University, and also after that with a number of elementary schools and academies. Over that time, what we were trying to do was recruit more students into Adventist elementary schools so that we would have a bigger feeder source for senior academies. And then eventually from the senior academies be able to draw them into Union College or La Sierra University, Pacific Union College. That introduced us to some other people who were interested in one of our other ideas, which was to create an affordable and accessible option for Adventist education, which would then be a kind of a junior college system, which would have a different pricing structure. And that's eventually what allowed us to start moving in that direction. And in 2007, California Preparatory College started.
So since 2007, when you started college, how many students do you think have gone through CPC, and how many do you think have actually adopted Adventist, theology or Adventist beliefs in part of their life?
I think since we started, there have been about 1,500 students that have gone through CPC programs. Wow. And over that time, I think about 60, 70 of them have been baptized into the Adventist Church. Probably about 100, 110 have been baptized into some other Christian denomination.
That's awesome.
So I mean, out of 110, 60, 70 have become Adventist.
Wow.
So.
And do you primarily target local students in the vicinity of the college, or how do you market to reach out to bring students in?
We actually have some international recruiters. We do very little local recruiting, mostly because we have very little budget to market. So the students that we do get tend to be word of mouth for domestic students or from the local areas. We have a unique program, which is called the Western Healthcare Practices and Communication Program. That program works primarily with foreign nurses, physicians, and physical therapists. And with that program, we have lots of international students who are coming in, which gives us a unique opportunity to minister to an international audience. So.
Very nice. So where is the school located?
We've actually moved around a little. And what I say at times is we've kind of played musical schools. And we started out in Redlands, and we're now in Colton. And over time, what we've moved where kind of God has led us and given us a facility where we've had lower cost rent, and the story with our facility is really pretty amazing in terms of how we've been able to have a place, continue to have a place despite different financial situations in the local area and the institution itself. So we are right down the street from Loma Linda in Colton.
Very nice, very nice. And I remember you mentioned that you and several gentlemen and other people came together to start the school.
Yes.
Do you mind explaining how you're able to recruit the teachers?
You know, that has been one of the biggest blessings and one of the biggest ways that we've been able to see that God has a plan for CPC. In the 10 years since we've opened, we have never had a real significant problem finding teachers. We've found missionaries, people who have returned from the mission field, other people who are retired, and they have a wealth of experience. They might even be teaching at other institutions in the area, or even Loma Linda or La Sierra, and they say, you know what, I believe in what you're doing. We'd like to come in and help out in the evenings or at other times. Wow. So we have had, some very qualified people who've come in and basically donated their time.
Yeah, I was going to say it's amazing what happens when you're actually passionate about something, when you actually believe in something. The kind of quality time that people will devote to that is it's night and day.
Yeah.
I know that right now, something that's big as far as a concern for most students going to college is the cost itself.
Yes.
I mean, it's gone up quite a bit. It's exceeded inflation 3 times, and kids are leaving school with almost a house payment. So does CPC kind of offer any financial benefits as far as students coming through there? Absolutely.
Students going to CPC can save a significant amount of money over their first 2 years. Gene Edelbach and I played an instrumental role in setting up the institution. We both had unique experiences. Gene worked in recruiting for many years at Atlantic Union College, La Sierra University, and Union College. And what we tried to create was a program that was affordable. Because a lot of people are interested in faith-based education, or Adventist families just can't afford Adventist schools. For example, I went to school in Canada because at the time, Canadian Union College was cheaper to attend than going to academy in the US. And I know Gene's experience and background was from self-supporting academies like Alpine Springs Academy. California Preparatory College is $9,900 for a full year of tuition. And when you compare that against a number of other our Adventist senior institutions in the North American division, you're comparing at somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 for, and that's the tuition, room, and board fee. But there is a significant savings. An average student would probably save about $40,000 over 2 years.
Wow. Something else that comes up that I think that would be a question for our viewers would be, what about transferring? Do you have working relationships with colleges that allow them to transfer to?
Absolutely. We have what are called articulation agreements with a couple different institutions. Those articulation agreements allow students taking CPC credits to transfer to a number of schools. There are some institutions that they will not transfer to. When a student contacts us, they will tell us where they want to transfer and what their plans are, and we're upfront with them. We say, you know what, if you're going to these institutions, we can help you and your credits will transfer. If you're going to some others, unfortunately, we're not going to be the right option for you.
That's awesome.
You mentioned that you have quite a few international students, and
Yes.
I've actually met a few of your students from overseas. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that? Because it seems like such a difference in culture, obviously, when they're coming into the school.
Well, we have a lot of students from, most of the students we have are international healthcare professionals. And they would attend CPC for anywhere from 9 months up to 3 years, depending on what program and certification they're working on. And part of their program involves a curricular practical training program, which allows them to work for up to 20 hours per week and gain knowledge working in an American healthcare facility that they would then be able to take back to their home country to hopefully make changes and maybe get into different positions back in their native countries.
Yeah.
So, and then I wanted to say one other thing, going back to where students go, or the majority of our students transfer to Pacific Union College, and Loma Linda University. And we also have a lot of them that go to Cal Baptist University.
Can you think of one story in particular of someone that went through CPC that, you know, came there looking for education and just their path along the way when they left, how they had changed to become just an Adventist?
Yeah.
Well, we've had, a lot of different students that have come through, and I know we've made a pretty huge impact on. There's some that have come where they are already Seventh-day Adventists, but then you're working on kind of solidifying their faith in a way. One that stands out in particular is a student that we had from Thailand. Actually, he's a Burmese student, but he grew up in Thailand. And he grew up in a refugee camp for 9 or 10 years.
Wow.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's at Union College now, and he's studying theology. And it was great having him come to CPC because he had an understanding. He got to learn more. We had him in a lot of different classes, and over time, he kind of served as a magnet for pulling in other students and saying, "Hey, this is what's really exciting," and he would drag them with him to different activities or to different churches and have them involved with all kinds of things. And we definitely miss not having him on campus, but we're really happy that he's studying theology and will hopefully be out working with other students and other people who really need a good shepherd.
So what happened was that his light kind of became infectious to others, or his excitement. And you said he wasn't Adventist.
Well, I think he had just converted.
He had just converted.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. So good.
That's a blessing.
How has your experience been working with the students?
Well, my experience working with the students, I never envisioned that I would be a teacher. And I can tell you, when I was I failed first grade. Probably should have failed. I should have failed 5th or 6th grade. I ran away from school a whole bunch of times.
Wow.
And I ended up becoming a teacher. So I always tell people, you know, God has a really strange sense of humor, and I've appreciated the journey and kind of learning more over time.
Yeah, well, I've appreciated you as a teacher. You're a good Bible study teacher.
Thank you.
Definitely.
I have when you're teaching the students in the more secular subjects,
Yes.
how do you incorporate spiritual topics? Maybe not overtly, but how do you somehow bring in Christ, the gospel in your teachings? Are there sometimes spiritual object lessons that you use in nature or stories? Is that part of your philosophy, or do you wait for students to ask you questions? How is your...
You know, I absolutely don't wait for students to ask me. I try to integrate it throughout what I'm teaching. One of my inspirations was a gentleman who was my professor at La Sierra University a long while ago. I think he might teach at Loma Linda as well. His name was Dr. Torben Thompson. I took an accounting and finance class from him, and unbelievably, he was able to turn accounting and finance lectures into basically sermons. And
Wow.
he had all kinds
Numbers.
of
Pay your
different
taxes.
examples.
Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
But his teaching inspired me and really forced me to look at different ways of how I can kind of integrate my faith and beliefs into classes. And ultimately, I think when you look at what we believe as Seventh-day Adventists, what is the point of education? The point of education is to reflect back and support ministry. So if you are teaching any subject matter independent of the end of what the ultimate objective is, and that would fall into the institutional learning outcomes. And the institutional learning outcomes at CPC are based on what is it that the Adventist Church's mission is. All of that has to feed in. And in every class, there needs to be a tie-in to what we believe as an institution, and that is directly coming from what we believe as a church in the soon coming of Christ and to support ministry.
Yeah.
So something that, you know, I'm just curious about, you know, you've gone through CPC, and, you know, as you've studied the Bible, have you found any motivational Bible verses that you've read that seem to continue to press forward in this mission that you have?
There are a number, and I think for me, over the last 10 years, they definitely haven't been easy. There have been a lot of challenges. There have been times where you expected support and help, and then you didn't get any. So one of those verses that stands out to me is, I think it's Isaiah 48:10. And it says, should I read it?
Yeah.
See, I have refined you. Though not as silver, I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. And when I look at that, for me, I realize that over time, even the people that have been core members of our team, we've changed. And where there have been struggles, I realize that those are challenges that God has put us through, because when you're working on purifying something, if you're a goldsmith, it takes heat and it takes time. And I feel like that's what we've experienced at CPC. We've had heat and we've had time, and the people who didn't really buy into what we were wanting to do and the ultimate mission of the institution have either left or they've looked more and they've said, okay, this is what we believe and this makes sense. So.
You know, so one of the verses that came to mind that when I was thinking about what you were going to be talking about was Isaiah 50. It's really 4-6. It's a messianic prophecy. But it says, "The Lord God hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. He wakeneth morning by morning. He wakeneth mine ear to hear as the learned." You know, as a teacher, as a educator, you know, God has given you the tongue of the learned. And speaking of Christ, he was the greatest teacher. And teaching is an opportunity to reach people in so many different ways. And the more education you have, the more you're able to reach out to a different variety of people.
Yeah.
And I think CPC offers not just education, but Adventist education.
Yes.
That really pushes forward what the Adventist Church is really behind, which is leading people to Christ. And education is one of those tools to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. We really believe that education needs to be something that prepares you, like Ellen White says, not only for this life, but for the life to come. Because you're not going to learn everything you need to here. But what we're working on is building a foundation for you to start working on that character and develop it.
Yeah, this verse came to mind when I was thinking about what you were saying. It's Jeremiah 9. Well, these verses, Jeremiah 9, 23 and 24, which says, "Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord." And just when you were saying, well, you know, education is not really education without Christ in it,
Correct.
is really what I took from what you were saying. And so it's like, well, all this wisdom that Solomon had, or all this wisdom, this knowledge that you learn from books, is it going to mean anything if you can't apply it faithfully in practice?
And I believe that that is not possible. In fact, if you look at the very last, I think, verses of Ecclesiastes, Solomon says that there's really no end to what you can learn. I mean, you can keep on learning different things, but what is the ultimate purpose of what you're learning? My grandmother, I think she went to school until maybe she was in 4th grade. And I remember she would always say to me, and I couldn't understand everything she said because she spoke a different language, but she put her hand on her Bible and couldn't read any of the words in her Bible because the language is completely different, but she would say, everything you need to know is in this book. And I didn't really understand that too well when I was a kid, and as I've grown older, I have realized, you know, she was really pretty correct.
Reminds me of the acronym, you know, Bible, basic instruction before leaving Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I like that read.
I've never heard that way.
Me neither. That's awesome.
That's true, that's true. And yeah, thank you, Reed and Chrissy, for bringing that up because, you know, like Reed mentioned earlier, the greatest teacher was Christ.
Yeah.
And if you point your students to Christ, I think they're getting a double education, not only from your personal experience and the other professors, but also ultimately of Christ himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, having their characters reform. And, you know, that's what we're all about in this program, you know, testifying of Christ and his goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, amen.
absolutely.
Was there another verse that, or would you like to take a look at Ecclesiastes more
Yeah, sure.
closely? You mentioned it, but
It was, what was it, Ecclesiastes?
Chapter 12, I believe.
12,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is one of my favorite, actually Ecclesiastes is my favorite book in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And I really like it because coming from a business background, and it's one of those things where at a lot of schools, your focus is on, well, what can I do to make money? And when you look at the story of Solomon, we believe that Ecclesiastes was written closer to the end of his life. And it's a person who has experienced a lot of different things. You don't have the Song of Songs Solomon. You don't have the Proverbs Solomon, but you have an older, more experienced person. He's saying, look, guys, I've tried all of these different things. I tried to build huge buildings. I've tried to make lots of money. I tried to work really hard. But then at the end of my life, this is what I can tell you has value. And it says the conclusion of the matter. Reed, you want to read it?
Sure, so in verse
13.
Let us hear the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
So what I take from that is when he's saying, know that this is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. It says to me, you know what? I believe in God and I believe in this message. So my focus needs to be on preparing my students, preparing everyone I know, and telling them incessantly, persistently that, you know what, this is important, there's hope, and this is where you find it.
Praise God.
Praise God.
I have one more verse I wanted to look at. It's the end of verse 12 of Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And I'll read, of making many books there is no end.
Yes.
And much study is weariness of the flesh. So I know not all of us, want to go to college or want to, get a master's or doctorate degree. What word would you say to one of us who's struggling to finding a balance between school and practical work or vocational training? What kind of encouragement would you find for those who are studying and much studying, like we're tired, we don't want to study anymore? What kind of counsel you would give to us?
I think education has a huge amount of value. But at the same time, I think in our modern society, we've come to glorify education too much. When you look at what early Adventists believed was medical missionary work, it didn't require you to have 8 years of schooling past college or, a lot of different things. Those are all amazing, great things. But you can go out and be a missionary. You can help and be a blessing in people's lives based on some very simple things. You can look at the New Start program. For one, that probably would fix 70% of people's problems in a modern society, where it gets you back to actually eating food as opposed to the chemicals and other stuff that we're consuming. So I think that education is important, but if that's not for you, it might be at another point in life. You can still go make a difference now.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
Well, we're just excited that you came, Jamie. It's been a blessing to have you on the show and to share about what CPC has done in the community as well as in the world. It means it reaches out to international students, and it's made impacts on hundreds of lives. And even though we've only seen 110 necessarily Christians baptized, we don't know what their experience has been after that. And so we'll continue to pray that CPC continues to move upon the hearts of those who attend. And we just want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we want to thank everyone for watching. iTestify is an opportunity for God to share with you, as well as with us, what lives have been changed and how impacts can be done around the world by just one person alone. Please tune in again with us next week. And please, if you have the opportunity, donate. And we are looking forward to talking with you again.